The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord.
Jesus said to the Pharisees, "There was a rich man who dressed in purple garments and fine linen and dined sumptuously each day. And lying at his door was a poor man named Lazarus, covered with sores, who would gladly have eaten his fill of the scraps that fell from the rich man's table. Dogs even used to come and lick his sores. When the poor man died, he was carried away by angels to the bosom of Abraham. The rich man also died and was buried. And from the netherworld, where he was in torment, he raised his eyes and saw Abraham far off and Lazarus at his side. And he cried out, 'Father Abraham, have pity on me. Send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am suffering torment in these flames.' Abraham replied, 'My child, remember that you received what was good during your lifetime, while Lazarus likewise received what was bad. But now he is comforted here, whereas you are tormented. Moreover, between us and you a great chasm is established, to prevent anyone from crossing who might wish to go from our side to yours, or from your side to ours.' He said, 'Then I beg you, Father, send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers, so that he may warn them, lest they too come to this place of torment.' But Abraham replied, 'They have Moses and the prophets. Let them listen to them.' He said, 'Oh no, Father Abraham, but if someone from the dead goes to them, they will repent.' Then Abraham said, 'If they will not listen to Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded if someone should rise from the dead.'" The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
When I go and visit my parents in Arizona, one of the places I love to visit is the Grand Canyon. If you've never been to the Grand Canyon, it's sort of impossible to describe. You're driving along the desert, and all of a sudden this big hole opens up in the ground, as big as the whole state of New Hampshire, 275 miles long, up to 18 miles wide, 6,000 feet deep. It's amazing. And it's so huge that the only way to get from one side of the Grand Canyon to the other is to either drive 300 miles all the way around from one rim to the other, or I suppose you could try to hike it. You could hike all the way down one cliff, all the way down to the Colorado River at the bottom, and all the way up the other way again, but that's going to take you some time. Well, a few years ago I was visiting, and that's what I decided to do. I said, I'm going to hike the Grand Canyon, and I set out at dawn and got there, and at the beginning of the trail, there are these big warning signs everywhere that say, "Do not attempt to go to the Colorado River and back in one day. You will probably die." But not being one to pay attention to warning signs, I said, "Oh, I'm sure it'll be fine." And I set out and started going down this zigzaggy trail all the way down one side of the Grand Canyon, and it's so massive. It's like going down 2 Mount Washingtons at once. And of course, I picked the hottest day of the year to do this. It was 95 degrees up on the rim. It was 130 degrees Fahrenheit down at the canyon floor. But, as I went down, it got hotter and hotter and hotter. I got down to the inner canyon near the Colorado River, and then the sun came out from behind the canyon wall and started shining down on me, and I started getting overheated. And I got down there almost to the river, and I started having heat stroke. And I said, geez, I'm starting to get disoriented. I'm confused here. And I looked around and I found one little bit of shade under a rock. And so I sat there and I looked up at this 6,000 foot wall that I still had to climb back up. And I said, oh, maybe that's what those signs were warning me about way up there. Well, maybe the man in Jesus' story can kind of relate, because there he is sitting in the afterlife, and he's getting pretty hot because it's hot in hell. And he says, well, I'm getting a little overheated here. And he looks over and he sees the poor man Lazarus sitting there in the bosom of Abraham. And it doesn't seem that far away. So he says, Abraham, send Lazarus to cool my tongue. I'm having heat stroke here. Have him just dip his finger in water to refresh me. And Abraham says, we can't. Even if we wanted to help you, there's this great chasm between us, the great Grand Canyon. And we can't, no one can cross from our side to yours or from your side to ours. Who can do that? I mean, we don't have a car to drive all the way around to your place, and who would be crazy enough to try to hike it? That's crazy in all that heat. No, we can't do it. And it almost seems cruel. Here is this poor rich man sitting there, miserable, tormented. Why doesn't someone help him? And it seems even crueler when Abraham says, I can't even send Lazarus to your brothers to warn them. You had plenty of warnings in your life. Did you listen to them? There were warning signs everywhere. We call them the prophets. There was the prophet Amos, like we hear today, saying, woe to the complacent in Zion. You're sitting around on your ivory couches. You're drinking big bowls of wine. These pictures of decadence. And yet you're not taking care of the poor who are in your midst. Woe to you. Did you listen to Amos and the prophets? No, you kept going right on by. And neither will someone even believe if someone should rise from the dead. And we know someone did rise from the dead, Jesus. And sometimes we still don't even listen to him. And I think, we can ask ourselves, who created this Grand Canyon in the first place between heaven and hell? Why is there this great divide? You go to the real Grand Canyon in Arizona and right away, God created this place. Nobody else could have created something so monumental, so massive, so beautiful. It's God, it has to be. And sitting there at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, it's contemplating meeting God soon. I was saying, I'm going to thank God himself when I see him. But who created that great divide between Lazarus and the rich man? Was it God? Does God sit around saying, you know what I really need to create? I need to create a place of torment where people who are bad in this life can go. Or is hell created by us when we put a divide between ourselves and someone else? Isn't that divide that the rich man is experiencing only the divide that he created in this life between himself and Lazarus? Even though Lazarus was at his doorstep, he was so close he could reach out and touch him. He had to step over him to get into his house. Even though he could hear the rumbling of his stomach, he never once even let scraps fall from his table. Even though he could see all the dogs licking the sores, he never once tried to help and provide medicine, provide care, comfort. Lazarus might as well have been on the other side of the Grand Canyon. So far did the rich man put a divide between them. And that's what hell is. Hell is the place we put ourselves when we say, I don't want to love. I don't want to be loved. I just want to be left alone. This story, I think, is meant to make us a little bit uncomfortable. And it's a type of joke that Jesus is telling. I think the people in Jesus' time seem to love these stories of when there was this reversal of fortunes and suddenly the rich people are being tormented and the poor people are being blessed. And, all of a sudden this Grand Canyon that he created, he's on the wrong side of it. But I don't know how funny this story really is. We take it more as a warning. Hey, we had to listen to this. It's kind of like the joke someone told me about the engineer who died, and as he went to the afterlife and he found out that he was assigned a place in hell. And he said, I thought I was living a good life, but I guess that's where I ended up. And so he said, if I'm going to be in hell, at least I'm going to make the best of it. I'm going to set about making some improvements. And so the first thing he did is he started to work on the air conditioning there in hell, which hadn't been working in a long time. And he worked on it and finally got the air conditioning going again. And all of a sudden, all this cool breeze came into hell, and it was wonderful. It was kind of like the air conditioning here at St. Michael's Church. It was so cool and comfortable. People started having put jackets on. It was so cool. And and then one day God looked down into hell and said, wait a minute, everyone's wearing jackets down there. That's not right. They're not supposed to be so comfortable. What's going on here? And he checked his master list and he realized a mistake had been made. That engineer was supposed to be in heaven. He's supposed to be up there doing good things. And so he said to the devil, hey, send that engineer back up here to heaven. That's where he belongs. And the devil said, no way. He's doing too many good things here. He's got the air conditioning working. He's going to be working on the elevator next. We're keeping him. And God said, no, you better send him here. I'm going to sue you if you don't. And the devil said, now really, God, where are you going to find a lawyer up in heaven to sue me? I don't like to tell lawyer jokes because you never know when you might need a lawyer, and there might be some lawyers here feeling uncomfortable, but that's kind of the point of Jesus' story. It is a type of joke. It's just that the joke is on us sometimes. Sometimes we're the ones that are supposed to be feeling uncomfortable, saying, well, wait a minute, maybe I'm that rich man who so often puts a divide between myself and others. That warning of the prophet Amos could be said about us today. Woe to you, complacent, who sit around on your couches watching Netflix all the time and go to McDonald's and get those big bowls of soda. And it's not that we're supposed to feel guilty about having good things in life. It's fine to have good things. It's great to enjoy good things and be grateful for them. But it is a problem if we have good things and we don't share them with those who have nothing. Before we get too uncomfortable here, I do want to say, though, I want to affirm this parish. This parish does respond when there's a need, and I'm really grateful. I always get worried, especially during the fall, because we have all these outreach programs this time of year. This is the time of year we do our backpack program. We help kids go back to school, and we have our Thanksgiving program. We provide meals for the hungry, and we have our Christmas gift program. And next weekend, first weekend in October, we always have the annual appeal for St. Vincent de Paul. And we help all the wonderful work that they do in our local community, fighting hunger, fighting poverty. And then, we have missions. Later on next month, Father Brian Kennedy is going to be coming. He's used to be the associate pastor here, and he'll be talking about the great mission work that he does in the Dominican Republic and how many parishioners have helped him over the years. And then there's the work of Catholic Charities around New Hampshire. We had that Catholic appeal last spring, and we raised money for Catholic Charities, for other needs in the diocese. It was incredible. I think we're almost up to our goal. It's like 95% of our goal. We raised almost $100,000. Thank you. We do respond when there's a need. And so I get worried we ask too much, but it seems like people respond endlessly with generosity. So thank you for all you do. And these last couple years, there's always been this thought that, oh boy, people are going to be in trouble with COVID and people and that never really materialized because there was a lot of stimulus out there. The COVID maybe wasn't as bad as people thought it could have been. But now people actually are in trouble a little bit. Inflation, rising energy bills are really hitting people. And maybe this is the time where we really have to respond to the needs that are out there in our local community, right on our own doorstep. Here in Exeter, poverty is often hidden, but it's there. Or statewide, or even internationally. It doesn't matter how far a person is away from us. What we are called to do is to care for them, to be right there with them and for them, providing from our needs, advocating for them, being in solidarity with them, sharing what we have. This is the lesson that Jesus is trying to teach us. If we divide ourselves from others, then we very easily could find ourselves divided from them in the afterlife as well. We have to realize that God, in his great love and mercy, puts no divide between us. He sent his son Jesus into this world to jump over that great divide, to be with us in our need, to bring us God's love. And that's what we are called to do for our brothers and sisters.